When I was growing up, and maybe some of you had the same experience, it was when you're a young boy or girl, the 8, 9, 10, or a little older maybe, the adults in your orbit tend to always look at you and say, "And what do you want to be in life? What do you want to do with your life?" It probably starts even earlier. Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be an airplane pilot? Do you want to be, a scientist or whatever it is? And when people ask me that, I never knew what to say. I didn't know any words for what to say until I read Autobiography of a Yogi. And I want to share this one line way at the end of the book, because then I knew. At least I had the words for it. I think I knew already, but I didn't have the words for it. Guruji says this. He says, life by life, each man progresses at his own pace, be it ever so erratic, toward the goal of his own apotheosis. What a word that is. Guruji had so much fun with words. That word apotheosis, it means achieving one's divinity. It means God realization. It means achieving the goal of yoga. It means achieving the goal of all universal spirituality, achieving one's divinity. But you have to smile the way Guruji puts it, don't you? He says, every soul on the planet is progressing toward that goal, but as he says, sometimes in a rather erratic manner, isn't it? So I think one of the things that I keep telling myself, and I did over the years, and perhaps it's useful advice to all of you, stop being erratic. Stop being erratic. One of the most powerful instructions, spiritual elements of sadhana that our Guru gave, it's also one of the most simple, and it's just this: schedule your life. Schedule your life. That doesn't sound like profound philosophy, does it? It doesn't sound esoteric or, it might if we translated it into Sanskrit, I don't know. But anyways, it doesn't sound like the profound yoga principle that it is. But it is just that. It is a profound principle of the spiritual path. Schedule our lives so that, number one, there's never any question that each day there will be time to meditate. Every day there will be time to meditate. It may be short, may be long, may vary from day to day, but that schedule is there to ensure that regularity and persistence in meditation, because that's where that transformative power comes into play. Remember what Lahiri Mahashaya said about Kriya? He said, keep on with your search for God through Kriya Yoga, whose power lies in practice. I see lots of heads nodding. How are we going to have that practice without scheduling our life? So that's the first thing. Second thing is that we make a schedule so that we spend at least a few moments of each day absorbing the divine, the life-transforming consciousness of the Guru through reverent study of his teachings. Study the lessons, study the Guru's words. They're not words. They're not philosophy. They're not information. They are a sacred transmission. Through the medium of those words, transmission of his divine consciousness, his divine perception into your own consciousness. And lastly, schedule. Schedule so that you structure your life around the balanced plan for all-around spiritual harmony that Guruji sets forth in the lessons. I want to share something that he said in this regard. And he was always so on fire and so proud, I think, really proud and enthusiastic to remind people of what India had given to the world. It was the basis of what he put in the lessons. It was the basis of the way he lived his life. It was the basis, that universal spirituality. It was the basis of what he brought to his organization, to his followers of East and West. So Guruji says this, and this is in this beautiful lesson 64 in the new series, the new supplement series of YSS lessons called Living a Life of Spiritual Balance. Powerful lesson. There's 2 or 3 that we could really point to and say, if you have time for nothing else, pay attention to this. This is one of them, Living a Life of Spiritual Balance. It's lesson 64. And so Guruji says, since ancient times, India has prescribed a real art of living for the complete and balanced development of every human being. India's pragmatic philosophy shows that man's highest necessity is 1, permanent destruction of the threefold suffering, physical, mental, and spiritual, and secondly, achievement, positive achievement of ever-conscious, ever-existing, ever-new joy. Permanent destruction of suffering and positive attainment of ever-new joy. And he says all lives in the world should be molded in such a way that they express this sublime state. And then Guruji takes us down to the nuts and bolts, you might say. He says, then comes the question. Then comes the question, how can human life be thus molded? And he gives the answer in 2 parts. 1, by organizing and scheduling human life according to a logical plan in order to attain the goal of existence, number 1. And number 2, by practicing the systematic eightfold path of yoga, particularly the pranayama techniques of switching off the life current from the senses and freeing the attention to concentrate on and become one with the ever-new joy of God in the soul found in samadhi meditation. I love this when he said, yoga is such a practical system of human development. It offers a super art of living to teach yoga's proven methods that lead to the full development of body, mind, and soul is the aim of the Yogoda Satsanga and Self-Realization Fellowship lessons. I think you know by now that I never tire of speaking of my great enthusiasm for what Guruji has given. He was like a ceaseless waterfall of purifying wisdom waters that just bathed. He came to bathe the entire planet, to bathe the entire global human family in that enriching and purifying and rejuvenating flow of not just wisdom, but practical techniques, practical methodologies for making our lives divine. We look around at the world today. Certainly there's a lot of causes for concern, isn't there? There's a lot of suffering, a lot of tragedy, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion. But Guruji is here to tell us that we should never forget that out of this a better world is being born. Out of this, a higher spiritual civilization is being born. You know, if we focus only on the negative, we miss the positive. If we focus on the positive, we find great hope in various departments of human achievement, in medical science, in social justice, in different scientific and industrial and technological achievements, better understanding of human nature, better understanding of the way to prevent sorrow and suffering. So all of these in their own individual and sometimes separate ways, these are all giving us tremendous hope that there is a greater future, a better future ahead of us. But you know, it often strikes me that when I read about these and when you see about the different individuals who are working in these fields, it often strikes me that one thing is missing. One thing is missing, and that is what I would call a unifying vision. Something that, some thread, some framework, some overarching understanding that unites them all together, in a force that will truly bring about the emerging global spiritual civilization. And that unifying vision, where do we find it? Where do we find it? Certainly, there are many noble and highly spiritual thinkers that lend their voices to that cause, but for me, none of them holds a candle to the potentials, the possibilities of that unifying vision emerging from the divine teachings of Yogoda Satsanga Society and Self-Realization Fellowship. So I urge each of you, study the lessons. Build your life around the lessons. One of them has the same theme. It's called Becoming an Ideal World Citizen. It's in this new series of supplement lessons that are coming out over this last year or two. Living a life of spiritual balance. And vitally important, the art of introspection and self-analysis, to change ourselves, purify ourselves, to make ourselves what we want to be, to put into practice and realize in our own lives that transformative promise of Kriya Yoga.